Just come.
Yes, I think we're live.
Come a little closer.
Okay, so a very warm welcome to everyone. Today we have with us Saurabh Sitaram, the co-founder and director of Keventers, one of the most recognized names in hospitality across India and the Middle East. He has been instrumental in growing Keventers to 340 plus outlets within a span of 3 years, and thus re-establishing Keventers as an iconic milkshake brand. With outlets across India, he has now taken the brand international to cities like Dubai, Nairobi, and Kathmandu, with London, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia on the cards as well. An industry veteran with a career spanning over 24 years, Saurabh has carved a niche for himself by specializing in pioneering out of the box culinary concepts over the years. With his wealth of experience and diverse interests that extend beyond food and beverages, he has been a speaker at numerous events, including several TEDx talks. An alumni of the prestigious IIM and Aurangabad, he spent a large part of his career with the Taj Group of hotels before moving on to set up many award-winning restaurants and bars across India. An innovator at heart, he brings in a wealth of expertise, having established restaurants across countries like Shalom, Tabula Rasa, She Kitchen and Bar, No Escape, and Laid Back Waters, to name a few. At Liger, Saurabh is an avid traveler, springboard driver, golf enthusiast, and keyboardist in a blues band. He has been the brand ambassador of the prestigious Thomas Cook Golf League. He was also part of the Indian Army startup operation Sadbhavana, undertaken to foster the spirit of entrepreneurship among the youth of Jammu and Kashmir. So, thank you, Saurabh, for joining here with us today.
Thank you, partner, for such a generous, long welcome. I seldom get such long welcomes, so I'm very excited. Thank you. I'm very super excited to be here.
Hi, welcome. So I think the first question we'd like to ask is, given your extremely rich exposure to this industry, and in particular, not just working in this industry, but kind of setting up and establishing chains from scratch. I mean, what would be your key learnings, not only, let's say, in the F&B industry, but also per se working on startups or restructuring brands?
Sure. See, if we talk about startups, and I come from a background, first of all, a little brief. I come from a background which is a forces background. It's not really, it's nothing to do with business, right? Nobody in my family was actually, my dad was in the army, and everybody, we all come from a family of pilots, who were not even flying civil planes, they're either flying the army choppers or the naval fighters. So that's the thing. So I always wanted that sort of a life. So yeah, business was a little different, and business was a little hard because it didn't come naturally to somebody like me. But my learnings have been tremendous. I started my business in the year 2000, and from here, so it's been rather long. So like, there's an exaggeration, I think, of 24 years, but yeah, 23 years is there, right? But so just to let you know, there have been certain learning there, and I'd like to share, especially in a startup scenario. Number one, competition is very hard. Very, very hard, especially when you're starting out, because you don't have resources, you don't have a team, you don't have many other things. So you've got to be able to stand out. And if you want to stand out, then you've got to go into a niche which is a little different. I would highly advocate this, that for people who are starting out without resources, without too many resources, so it's difficult to compete. So always start out with a niche which is different, which is like they say, okay, it's good to be different. So yes, I do believe it's different. Try and have a monopoly. Build a product that is not already there in the market, or even if it's there, it's not yet established. Like, for example, there's no chain, or there's no established player who already exists, because this gives you wings, like I say. So you've already sorted out a major impediment in the world of startups. So I think that's important. I'm not saying that that's the only way you can be successful, but I think this definitely acts as a catalyst. So it's very important in life when you're starting out to, I mean, rather be successful in life when you're starting out rather than failing, right? So that's the thing, and everybody's scared of failing. So that is one. Second is, I think what I've learned over the years is that, the way I was taught and bred, so to speak, I did a lot of time before doing anything, started doing a business plan, then 5-year business plans, and then just trying to modify the plan and a little bit here and there tweaking, and that tweaking never ended. So the thing is, I've always followed, I've always been highly influenced by sport. Saying which says that, just do it. So the thing is that once you decide to do something, which is start a business, you've got to just do it and stop wasting time. The education system, whatever you're learning is, it kind of, especially when you're doing a startup, it kind of comes in your way and it tells you, acha, before doing this, do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K steps, and very soon steps are there till Z. So I think you've got to avoid that. That's very important, because in a startup, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. You've got to really start, and once you start, then there are many things you learn along the way, and you can keep innovating. You can keep adding on to new business. The important thing to remember is that you've got to create a niche, especially in a startup. So in an F&B business, I would say try and create some sort of a hero item for which you're known. And that is the key of my learning. I've seen a lot of people wasting valuable time doing research work and asking people. That's another thing. I think when you do a startup, we all love democracies, but you've got to have a little bit of dictatorship in you. And I think that's very important, because that's the only way you can move fast. So I would say that's another thing. Startup is no place for people who are sensitive, people who are scared, and people who keep thinking about what others think of them. I think because it's a risky proposition, you're getting into a world. Earlier, everybody used to say, "Oh my God, this guy has not got a job in a good organization." So probably that's one of the reasons why he's doing a startup, which is not the case. So you've got to listen to relatives, you've got to handle families, you've got to handle friends, you've got to handle friends who are doing probably earning a lot more than you when they're in successful companies. So it's no place for the meek. It's no place for the weak-hearted. It's a place where you cannot be sensitive, and you should be able to laugh at yourself, I think, and not care a damn about. I don't mean it in a demeaning sort of way, but you've got to really not bother about the other people and what they think of you. And last thing, you've got to be frugal in a startup. You've got to be very careful about money, and never be kaan ka kacha, because in India, everybody's kaan ka kacha. So if your startup is not doing well and somebody tells you, and they tell you, acha, don't do it like this, advice is not the right thing. It's the same thing when you're playing golf. You've got caddies who are coming and giving you advice, and ultimately your swing goes for a toss. So the thing is that these are some of the learnings that these are my learnings. So the idea is not to be a perfectionist when you do a startup, because we all strive to be the perfectionist. That's what we've been taught. That's what we've learned all our lives, and you're invariably joining the dots and trying to make the perfect plan, which never happens. I would advise everyone, you're 70% ready, 65%, 70% ready. Just go ahead. Don't look for that perfection. So these have been my learnings there in the startup world.
Okay, so Saurabh, considering your immense experience in the F&B industry, what are your insights about the average Indian customer and their irrational demands?
See, the thing is, there's a saying here, and I'm a firm believer in sayings, whether it's idioms or whether it's anything. They've all come up for a reason, and especially what our elders say. So there's a saying which is very pertinent in our business. It's saying, in Rome, do as Romans do, right? So invariably, when you're looking at a business and looking at a business in India, we've got to realize that Indians are very emotional people by heart, okay? And most of the businesses that are successful today are businesses which have been able to connect with the customers. There needs to be an emotional connect. Now, emotional connect also. So let's look at a family, an Indian family, and if you're trying to make an emotional connect with your friend or your family members, there's a lot that you've got to contribute, and you've got to work on it. So Indian customer invariably is pretty much the same. Okay, they may have demands, they may be unreasonable a lot of times. They may be super sensitive, but you've got to take it in a stride. And I think that if you try to do something which is out of the ordinary and try to inculcate something which is against the system in general, because we Indians have been bred in that sort of a manner, it invariably backfires. So the thing is that while Indian customers may be whatever they are, but at the end of the day, we're also Indians, so we're pretty much familiar with what is the way to handle them. You know that a typical Indian customer is demanding, and is purely demanding because there's an emotional attachment, and the emotional attachment is very important. The demanding nature of the customer is very important. Like they say, between a husband and a wife, invariably there are fights. But when there are fights, that's when the relationship is fantastic. By the way, the relationship becomes sour when nobody's speaking a word to each other, right? And that's pretty much what it is. I think it's great. We've got to take our Indian customers very, very seriously. If they're saying something, and they are not saying something for the heck of it because they're emotionally attached to your brand, so that's very important. And of course, as Indian customers, I think one thing they need is instant gratification. So that is something that you must work on, and everybody expects to hear back. So you cannot be aloof. You cannot be you cannot have an attitude, so to speak. You've got to be with the people, and I think that's a very important learning, which we all must do. Somewhere down the line, when a brand starts becoming very successful, we get into that mode that, okay, listen, we've reached a level, but you must remember that you're nobody without a customer. So yes, Indian customers can be demanding, but because they can get emotionally attached to your brand, it is far easier to work with Indian customers. So that would be my take on this.
Right. So just building up on that question, I mean, do you have any in particular examples or insights that you feel customers are in a certain way in, let's say, India versus the Middle East, especially in the food and beverage industry?
Yeah. See, now that we've done many outlets in the Middle East, so I could, of course, there are not as many as we have in India. But yes, there is a definite difference. The customers in the Middle East are more for product. What is the quality? What is... so the major difference is that they've got nothing to do with emotions as much. The customers in the Middle East, and they don't really care. They care for great service. If they get good service, that's it, and then it's over and forgotten with. Building brand loyalties is far, far more difficult, actually, when you look at a customer in the Middle East. Middle East also comes with its own qualms. There is this, well, let me give you this little pyramid. So in the Middle East, so if you look at the hierarchy pyramid, the top of the pyramid are people who belong to the Middle East. Okay, so there's the difference. So if you look at the hierarchy structure in India, on top are not people who are not Indians. I would say it's changing, but the white skin still rules over here in India. So that is the main difference in the Middle East. Then below that, then all other Emiratis who live within the entire Middle East. I'm not just talking Dubai per se, but across. Third are people who are not Emiratis, but are still people who belong to the Middle East. Followed by the white skin who are from Europe, America, and stuff like that. And then followed by the Indians. The Indians may be very successful there, but they are successful not as entrepreneurs, but more so as people who are working for different companies over there. Very few have made it. People who've made it, of course, there are always exceptions who've who've done something like so. Typically, that's what it is. Middle East for you. So an Indian brand that is going to make waves over there, it's slightly more tougher because of these hierarchies. It's much easier if you come from Europe because they look up. The aspirational value actually comes from European and other countries. So primarily the customer invariably comes with that mindset, okay, which is already there, right? Vis-a-vis in India, you're an Indian and you exactly know what the customer is. And in India, if you can create an emotional attachment with a customer, he's there with you for life, which I think is great. You don't even need to advertise. You don't even need to, and an Indian customer talks to at least 100 more people. Indian customers are always, but then there's a problem there. And if you give them attitude and there's an issue, then they also talk negatively to a lot of people. So I would say both have the challenges, but this would be the major difference. So here you play more on emotions. There you play more on professionalism. I think that's I would say that is the key in both the areas. Right.
Okay, so moving on to your journey in Keventers, it has a rich history of serving milk products since 1925, which is like quite a long time. So how difficult was it to make the young customers aware of that legacy while still ensuring that the brand connects with the youth?
See, Keventers invariably, so it's a very pertinent question. Actually, Keventers was not an easy sell to, unlike what, see, most of the people who come to me and say, oh my God, it's been so easy because it's a legacy brand. And all you've done is that you've got the legacy brand to kind of take off. And but the question is, it's not easy. Today, actually, if you look at brands, the shelf life of the brands is not very high. Earlier brands used to be alive for 50 years, 60 years, 40 years. Today, the time span has come down considerably. So today, I won't be surprised if brands are just alive about 10 years or just a decade, and that's it. And the new brands kind of take over. So you've got a much shorter window. So at Keventers, we realized this. And while we may have an iconic or legendary sort of past, but it's also, I would also put it as baggage. It's a very heavy baggage which is on us. And then people also consider you old school also, and whatever they've seen of whatever they've seen of Keventers has been old school. So yes, the challenges were definitely there, and that's how, and the main thing was to connect it with the youth that you rightly said. So again, I would go on, this is what we did when we were looking at connecting with the youth. Everything and anything that was done in the world of branding, okay, we only got, we could have actually gone to some of the best companies who could have done the branding, who could have done, the graphic design for us. But we actually chose to go with people who were under the age of 22, people who were new, who didn't have too much of an experience. So they are the ones who actually did it for us. And I must say they did a remarkable job, because we always believe the target market that you're actually reaching out to, your vendors and the people you work with, should also be of the same target market. I think I've always used this in a business. If I'm doing a restaurant where we're catering to a crowd over 30, 35, then we'll actually get a more sort of, so those sort of vendors would come in. But where this is concerned, we started doing, with only the younger generation being on board for the graphic designs. Secondly, while Keventers may be considered, we did not forget our legacy, So all our marketing, 20% was oriented towards legacy brands, and how, it's come from the past, and, it has its so-called roots. But 80% of all the marketing was projected to modern India, okay? So the way India is modernizing, what is happening in India, how Make in India is very cool, what is the environment. So modernization was the key. So 80% was that, and 20%. We are not a company, invariably, I won't like to name some companies, but there are a lot of companies which invariably harp just about the past. And unfortunately, they're left there. So they're not being able to move. So I would say that anybody, so what we adapted is hybrid, but more towards the modernism sort of stream. So it's 80-20 that we followed over here. Third is that what we did was, look, I'm a firm believer that we must give back something to the society. Okay, but we must give something back to the society when you're creating a business. It should be that once you become a millionaire and billionaire and then you give something to the society, it's no big deal. I think everybody does it. It doesn't matter. And that really doesn't speak of your intent, because most of the times you're just doing that to save taxes. So, uh, so my belief was that, India, we've got to create that emotional attachment, because for a business to be successful, especially when we were coming through, the emotional attachment had to be created. And so we introduced the glass bottles, which I think was a runaway success. Now, if you look at a lot of MNCs, we realized that all they were doing was selling things in plastic, polluting, and that's our country, India. Yeah, you don't want India to be polluted at the end of the day. So we started off with glass bottles. We recycled the glass bottles, and there were a whole lot of, and the cost invariably was a lot more. So this, I would say, is also a contribution to the society. Everybody would say, "Arey, contribution to the society would be more after you own money, then you do this." But we choose to do it as a cost in our P&L statement, because it was the cost was 4 times more than using plastic. You see, but that's the call we took, and immediately it had a connect with the youth, because we wanted to create that emotional bonding. Okay, so that's one thing which we feel that it's really worked for a brand. And I firmly believe that when you're doing a brand, it's very important that you talk about the legacy, but talk more about what you're going to do. So modernize it. So that's what we did. We modernized the brand. We used the glass bottle. All our marketing was towards a progressive India. None of the marketing was towards India as a snake charmer's place, or we've got charpais and stuff like that. So it was always progressive, and that, I think, is something that's really worked for us. Of course, monopoly in the milkshake business, because there were no sort of organized players in the milkshake business, really helped us. And I think what we've been able to create is a very aspirational product. Let me tell you that coming from Keventers, we could have picked up anything. Keventers was primarily milk, dairy, it had ice creams, it had butter, ghee. We could have done so many products. But there's a reason why we chose milkshake, because A, there was no market over there for milkshake. And also, actually, if you talk about non-alcoholic beverages, milkshake pretty much has a personality of its own. So if you actually do some research work and go back and Google milkshakes, you'll realize, especially the American culture, the European culture, you'll find lots. So it has a distinct personality. It has a heavy personality. Okay, so it's a brand that already has an established personality. So we thought that it would be an easier sell in this market. So these are some of the points that we used here to create the brand, Keventers.
Right. So, like you said, the established brand was something that was very great at Keventers, but I'm sure that that was also kind of a hindrance, because since like you said, when you do restructure a company, it's a different process than actually establishing a new one. Correct.
Right.
So, what would you think would be the major differences between these two journeys, and what would you enjoy more?
Any day. I would, sorry, I wasn't able to get your question properly. I'm sorry. So you're talking about whether I would enjoy it. So just correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying whether I would enjoy a journey where there's monopoly, and that's something that you need to create, vis-a-vis going into a business which already is, which has a lot of competitors. Is that what you're saying?
No, more so on the part that is it better when you reestablish or like restructure an already existing brand versus when you start it up from scratch? That journey.
It's always easier. I'll be very upfront and honest with you. It's always easier to create, and the reason why I'm saying is actually I've been able to do both. But yeah, restructuring a brand is not easy, because there's baggage, like you rightly said, already existing in the brand. Okay, like they say, retrofit is always more expensive than creating something. For example, if you raise a building and you create a new building, it's always easier, right? But if there's already something which is established, so first you've got to raise it. And you may choose not to raise it completely, but to raise it slightly and then start building. And then, so it's a lot of destruction that happens when you're doing. It's not an easy set. I would any day look at creating a new brand because there's no baggage, there's no this thing, and it's so much easier. Unlike what people think, people would say, "Oh my God, oh, thake isne bana diya aur ye wo." It's not easy, and there are many brands that you can actually look back, and there are many examples, and you realize they've not been able to make it, and it's far easier to have a newer brand because there's no baggage here, and you do exactly what you want to do, and once you establish there, see, for example, even Keventers, let me tell you, everybody knew it in North India, but when we went to down south, nobody knows about the brand, and very few people know it in the West. It was not an easy sell. I would definitely prefer starting something, creating something, and my speciality actually is creating something new, and that I always see as a challenge. But like they say, once you've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't work, then life becomes a lot more easier. Then you don't really have to join so many dots. You still have to join the dots based on the product that you're doing, but it's a far easier step. I would prefer to make a new product, starting from the scratch, starting from, it's fun. Both are fun. Both have its challenges, but as a person, I just love challenges. So invariably, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think creating a new brand a little more easier.
So regarding the restructuring thing, I think you were the most prominent person who was responsible for it, and specifically the glass bottles for Keventers was kind of the game changer when it was not the most conventional choice, specifically in the Indian context. So what would you prefer, innovation or traditionally tried and tested strategies?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Now the thing is that in certain businesses, businesses are different. For example, in the technology business, I think innovation is important. The traditional approach, as per me, look, I come from both the worlds. Yeah, little old school as well as we've incorporated a lot of modern stuff. I've always had the belief that traditional approach and traditional businesses work best. A lot of people tell me that, for example, you may consider the glass bottle as something which was very, very innovative. But the fact is that it was not innovative. The fact is that the glass bottles were being used from times immemorial, okay, from a very long time. It's only, but somewhere down the line to save money, I would say that innovation was more to save money and the sort of easy dispensing of the products. So I would still say that so I consider the glass bottle as something which is a traditional approach that we've used. Of course, we've then innovated post that. So any business, I think, whatever you do, a traditional approach is extremely necessary, as per me, in the beginning, followed by innovation, because if you just stick to traditional approach, you won't head anywhere. And I'll give you a very good example. And for example, let's say this traditional approach of the milkshakes or the glass bottles, okay, that we use. The approach was traditional. But after that, we celebrated India. We celebrated what Indians celebrate on the glass bottle itself, which was innovation. I'm not saying it's such a huge technology innovation, but it was still innovation. And I'll tell you how we celebrated. So if there was a festival, if there was a Diwali festival, that was plastered, it was put on the bottle. That, hey, Keventers, abhi tak you've just taken the bottles. Now take bottles which are the Diwali bottles, okay? We went to Dubai, and Dubai, people are very, very proud of their the skyline of Dubai, for example, okay, or particularly the structures that they make, and that is invariably what we did on the bottle, right? Similarly, when we went to Kenya, a lot of people go for safaris. So, the big five are what people go to see over there, which are the big five animals, right? So we actually had them on the bottle. So what it gave is, invariably, when you go to such places, we've always followed a community first approach. So I feel that the traditional approach always works, but innovation is necessary post that. Okay. And otherwise, the aim of the game is to be actually not the leader when you're doing. So traditional approach is to create a business, and invariably you need to be the last man standing in the business. You don't need to be necessarily the first man, but I think the way I see it is, you've got to be the last man standing on the battlefield. And for that, I think innovation is necessary. And it can be in simple ways also. It doesn't necessarily have to be just using technology. Could be anything. And I give you this example of and also remember, yeah, there's always this brand fit. You've got to be able to like take I'll give you a very different sort of example. Say we drink wine. Wine comes in a bottle. But the great fit for the wine is actually the glass that you drink the wine in. Most of the times you're drinking wine in a stem glass, and that's where the style comes in if you're drinking wine, right? Now imagine that you drink a glass of, you drink wine in a highball glass or a Tom Collins glass. These are just jargons for glasses which are taller, F&B jargons. But yeah, but imagine drinking wine in that. Even if the wine is fantastic, you won't enjoy it. Am I right? So it is the same thing with milkshakes. Yeah, you have it in anything else, you won't enjoy it. You even have, forget a glass bottle, you make a glass container or you make a glass and then you have the milkshake in a glass, you won't enjoy it even if it's made of glass. So what I'm trying to tell you is that invariably the thinking is a lot more, and then you start innovating. So earlier wine bottles were just corks, right? They had the lid on top, it was corks. But today you have the finest wine that they've innovated. Yeah, they're doing the screw caps, and people gradually have taken to it. So that's what I'm saying. So always in business, traditional approach followed by innovation is what I would say is a successful approach. Yeah, that's it.
Coming to a more macro trend that we're seeing in India, I think food aggregators have had a huge impact on both our customer convenience and sales and everything. So, I mean, where do you see that trend, and where have you seen that trend affecting, let's say, Keventers in particular, but also the food and beverage industry as a whole?
Okay. So, in life now, when you have to grow, then you always grow with people along with you. So if I have to grow socially, I need to create my own networking social circle, right? Most of the business opportunities that I've got is purely because I was networked pretty well, and there were opportunities that came, right? So I consider brands like Swiggy, Zomato as a great opportunity to network with them. I think they're a blessing in disguise. They've changed India. I think the way they've reached out to people has been fantastic. And yes, I think that the price they charge is quite reasonable for what they're doing. Invariably, everybody disagrees with me in the restaurant industry. Okay, where they say, oh my God, these guys have come, the experience is gone. People only look at discounts. People only look at, nobody cares. When you go to Zomato, you're not going to a brand. You're saying, yaar, sabse sasta pizza kahan milta hai, wahan se lunga main, right? Yeah, sabse sasta milkshake ka. We've not felt it, to be honest. I think that's the brand you're able to create. I think Zomato and Swiggy are a blessing in disguise. I don't see them as competition at all, at least not currently, unless they start doing milkshakes. Then of course it's a competition, but they're sticking to their own niche. So we don't have really a problem. I think they've changed India, and kudos to them and hats off to them. And if we need to survive, or anybody who needs to survive in this world, it's very important to be a part of that establishment. Okay, it's not just survival; it's also networking. It's a little demeaning if I'm using the word survival, but it's you always network and you're able to create something even substantially more better. But yes, if you ask me, a business which is solely dependent on Zomato, then I won't create that business. Okay. So for example, a lot of people in the bandwagon started getting into, because it was very easy to set up a cloud kitchen business, for example. The costs were less, Zomato was there to deliver. But remember, in this business, you're getting into a business which is solely dependent on another company, which is Zomato or Swiggy. So then it's a very dangerous business, I would say. So I'm never a firm believer in the cloud kitchen business. Zomato started off taking 12% of your total billing, and it's gone up to about 30% today. So for any brand to actually make money solely dependent on that's 30% gone there, 30% food costs, and invariably other costs. So the margins are very less in this sort of a business. I'm talking about the cloud kitchen business. Then you've got to do thousands and thousands of cloud kitchen for a business to be, for you to earn substantial money. And I would put it as a very risky business. Instead, a lot of people come to me and say, "Arey, Zomato's, it's a problem. Swiggy, Zomato, blah, blah." So I say, yeah, don't look at it like that. Look at it like you've already got an established brand, which is a brick and a mortar model. Okay. It's working well. You're already doing an X sale. Any sale that you do for Zomato, you're just giving it a 30%. You're just giving it 30%, but it's coming from your establishment, which is already established. You already have a brick and mortar. You already have the equipment. You already have the staff working. You're not employing a single new person to do anything. So what is the problem? In fact, that should be regarded as bonus sale. So whatever the X plus Y is coming through bonus sale, and people use. And for this, you'll have board meetings and people are sitting here, listen, I need to increase my revenue per square foot. What should I do? Yaar, isme na aur product dal dete hain, ye kar dete hain. Yare bhai, there's already somebody sitting. That guy is Zomato. He's doing all the marketing. Another player is Swiggy. Make use of those people and consider it as bonus business. And that is what we are doing. And we have a very open mindset here. We are a company, and I firmly believe that we should only collaborate with people. I think, there's a joke where, when a lot of people had fallen in the well, I don't remember the joke so well, but the Indian was, while everybody was telling, European was making another European stand on his shoulder, and they were trying to reach the top of the well, while an Indian, if somebody was actually, he climbed the top, the Indian was only trying to pull him down. Yeah, come down. So I think it's time to change all of that, and I really like it that the world is changing and India is changing, and the collaboration is extremely important. So I look at it as a blessing in disguise, and we really welcome such companies. I think they've done a great job. That's my take on this.
Just a follow-up question, since you did mention competition. So I mean, now that you see Swiggy and Zomato as a collaborator, who would you look at as a competition? Like, since you're a kiosk-based, let's say, milkshake company, right? So do you think you do have competitors? Is it like your quick service restaurants are competitors? Is it like that, or do you feel that it's a complete niche altogether?
Yeah, look, if you go through the management books, so to speak, okay, then of course there's competition. Then because there's all sorts of things when you read or say, oh, direct competition, indirect competition, blah blah blah. You can create anything and say, oh my God, all these things exist. But the thing is, yes, competition is definitely there. Yeah, I would consider any QSR as competition today. So for example, if you go and there's a food court, okay, and there's a food court and everybody's vying for that particular, and everybody's selling a beverage. For example, a KFC would sell a beverage. KFC also sell milkshakes, by the way, or any of these. Everybody's selling, right? But the thing is that is competition, yeah, because a person invariably is sitting and eating burgers and then he orders a milkshake also. That's the sale which has gone away from us, right? So I would consider competition, the entire QSR business, as a competition. Okay, so you can't run away from competition, but in terms of direct competition, people are not very many people will actually create a brand which is only milkshakes and you get nothing else over there, right? But I believe that is the model that we worked on, and a lot of people have done the math. Okay, all the gurus have done the maths and said, oh my God, and financial wizards, and said, yeah, this kind of a model doesn't work out. So hum to ye karenge nahi. And I'll give you a fine example of chayos, which started only as chai. Right? But today there's less of chai and there's more of everything else. Again, I'm not demeaning, but it's not easy. And I think we as Keventers have been able to really control the costs. We give fantastic products. We never do we are very ethical in the market. If it comes to milk, you will get pure milk. It's not that, you're not using chemicals and other substances to reduce the cost so that you can sell it at a cost which is so low, so that there's So people are, which is what a lot of these MNCs are doing. They're trying to, if you read on an MNC, any food, they always say, okay, children should not be eating this. It contains MSG. Keventers, we can proudly say you can have whatever you want here. There is no problem. Nobody's stopping you. Yes, don't drink too many milkshakes because you may become. There are calories involved. Fine, but yes, the thing is that competition is there. It's pretty much there, but in that niche segment, competition does not exist. I would say that in Keventers, the way we built up the brand, there are not too many competitors where the milkshake business is concerned because of our fantastic PNL model where we're able to generate even EBITDAs up to about 25 to 30%, which is very difficult for a restaurant to do. That's because we tightly control all the processes. So I think that's one thing that's very work for us. But yes, competition is there throughout, no doubt about that. And we'll keep building up over time. So that's where, like the gentleman asked me, innovation, that's where the innovation actually comes in. And you've got to, like I said, yeah, listen, you've got to be really, you have to be the last man standing in a battlefield. And that is what, for example, say if we look at Google, I think it would be, or a Microsoft, they are the last people standing. Was it the first search engine? Not really. So it doesn't matter. But who's the last person standing? A friend of mine once, I did restaurants and everybody introduced me. I was so proud. I did so many restaurants. And I used to do nightclubs and people used to come and ask me, "Arey yaar, you've done this and this and you've got, 20 restaurants you've done and all." Finally, one person came and from the US and I was quite shocked because again, somebody introduced me. Oh yeah, Sohrab, he's done so many restaurants and all of them are done so well. He said, "Great, Sohrab, nice meeting you. Tell me how many restaurants still exist?" Okay, and that took me by shock. Okay, because nobody had ever asked me that question before. Everybody always lived on my past glory. I've created so much, And that's when I realized, yeah, listen, this guy's, it was a shocker actually. And nobody had ever asked me that question. It's fantastic. How many exist right now? And then I realized, okay, a lot of my restaurants had shut and very few exist, right? So I've always tried to do this last man standing, and that's the way we kind of even brief our team, always. Yeah.
So, Saurabh, where do you think Keventers is headed to now? And what do you think, where will the market move to?
See, number one is that we will always focus on our core, and our core has always been the milkshake business. Okay, so that will forever be there, but we need to add more plates. For example, if you look at, and successful companies are companies that focus on their core. For example, if you look at Domino's, right, they do focus on the pizza, and that's just about it. There may be other things which are coming and going, but it's not really. So the focus really needs to be of Keventers. The focus of Keventers will always be on the core product, which is a milkshake. We will innovate in the milkshake business and the dairy market. We intend going the FMCG route now. Okay, Keventers has been very successful, but if you actually say it's a live model, and the live model has been very successful, now we need to go into the market, which is an FMCG market in the milkshake business and the cold coffee business. We don't want to be like the masses. We don't want to sell product for 35, 40 rupees because believe you me, if you make a milkshake at home, it will not cost you 40 rupees. So anybody who's selling milkshake or anybody for 35, 30 rupees, you know what it essentially contains. Our milkshake will be over the price of 100, but whatever you're drinking will be good for you, will be good for your body. I think it will be very ethical. So that's what we're working on currently. So that's number one, entering the FMCG business. And purely we're entering the FMCG business purely because of the scale, because we need to now start increasing the turnover also. Though it's increasing, one way of increasing it by adding more and more outlets, which we'll anyway do. Our plan is to add 500 new outlets in the next 3 years, which is what we're working on now. So that's about 3 outlets a day. Okay, and second, what we're looking at is the FMCG business. Third, we also want to go with ice cream. I think the ice cream business is a great business, and it's actually an integration of the existing business that we have. And that's something, the ice cream business, which will go both into the FMCG business as well as not B2B currently, but B2C. And for, if need be, even D2C. So this is what we are currently working on. At this point of time, that's all innovation that we want to think of. I always tell my team, yeah, whenever we sit for a meeting and all, invariably 20 points come up. But we as a company, we talk about only 2 or 3 points, because when we write down 2 or 3 points, you always end up doing those 3 points. When you write down 20, you end up doing no points. So even in my to-do list, you'll see there'll always be 3 points, nothing more than that, because those are the most important points that we need to cover, period. So that's what we're working on. That's what you'll see with Keventers now.
All right, so we've got a question from the audience. We have Siddharth from the YouTube chat, and he's asking us, what are the factors that are considered during store expansion? And can we see a cloud kitchen format in Keventers?
See, Keventers, a cloud kitchen format is there in Keventers, but if you talk about the sales, I don't think they are profitable businesses. But if you just look at a cloud kitchen format, like I was telling you earlier, you need to have plenty. And in our case, we've always seen that the margins are very little, and we as a company, we don't like to get dependent on any player. Tomorrow, if Zomato is not there, Swiggy is not there, it's a problem. Tomorrow, or Zomato or Swiggy increase the rate from 30, it's increased from 12 to 30. But if they increase from 30 to 50, or they increase from 30 to 60, then it's a problem for us. So the thing is that why create a business which is solely dependent on another company? I won't want to do that, right? We will have a few, of course, invariably we will have a few outlets, because sometimes you see, oh, the cost is nothing of doing these. So yes, we've done a few cloud kitchen models of Keventers, and they work well for us. But that's essentially, we've done it in areas where you know that there'll be a lot of demand, online demand or digital demand, so to speak. Keventers will always follow the hybrid model, which will be brick and mortar, which we're going to expand. But we will never ignore the good collaborators who are brothers who are doing so well, I would say, whether it's Zomato or Swiggy, but never be, like in life also, in family also, never be too dependent on anybody. Can't be too dependent on your dad, can't be too dependent on your mom, can't be too dependent on your brother, and can't be too dependent on your rich mother-in-laws or father-in-laws or people, So you've got to do things yourself. So don't be dependent on others. If you want to create a sustainable business and business that lasts, make the business stand on its own 2 feet, without depending on others. So that's where I see Keventers. So yes, cloud kitchen's great, but that's my take, dependency very high on others. Make the dependency high on you as an entrepreneur. Don't make it high on some other company. So that, I hope that answers the question of the gentleman.
Okay, so we have Neeraj from YouTube chat, and he's a young entrepreneur from India, and he asks, like, he's fearing if how to deal with competition and risk in the industry, in whichever industry he's working with. So what would be your advice to our young entrepreneur?
Yeah, see, the competition is tough, and it can be very daunting task, to actually go up against competition, because you're always thinking that, my God, how can I compete with this guy who's got so much money, who's got so-called private equity power behind him. Private equity to love losing money, right? All the money is spent on branding, because the idea is to just... So yes, it can be a very daunting task, and I believe, which is why I said that if I were to do a startup today, I would not enter a market, which is saturated. I would not enter a business where there's too much competition, because it's not easy, to enter a market which has already established competition. But sometimes, invariably, you don't have a choice. You feel that I've got such a great idea, let me enter. In that case, I would still say that work in a hero item. What happens is that, you've got to create a hero item, right? I'm just trying to say, if you cannot create a hero item, create the next niche ka hero item. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So Neeraj, if he's working on something like this is what he should do. And I'll give you a very good example. Say, let's talk about the restaurant industry. Now, restaurant industry, my God, is a very... people say, oh my God, $1 trillion industry. But the fact is that everybody is a restaurant. So many restaurants are there. It's not easy, right? So now how do you stand out? So I'll give you a very good example of Moria, which is the ITC hotel. And they, and that restaurant, by the way, still wins awards. It's the top restaurant in India today. I'm talking about Bukhara. And look, Bukhara also came in, and there were many Indian players, right? So many Indian restaurants were there that existed when Bukhara came in. But what did they concentrate on? They said, yeah, listen, rather than creating this, let's just create a niche or a sub niche, which is the dal. So they looked at the dal makhani, and they built an entire story around the dal makhani, blah, blah, blah. And they built a niche there. And imagine such an expensive restaurant actually sells because of the dal. It doesn't sell because of the meat. It doesn't sell because of the, it's dal that they created as a fantastic sort of sub niche. So I would tell Neeraj that if you're going to market and there's too much, so first think of a hero product. If the hero product is saturated, then look at the sub niche of that hero product. For example, this particular thing, they looked at an Indian restaurant, and then they said, yaar, Indian mein niche kya ho sakta hai? And then they said, theek hai, chalo, dal makhani, because there was no niche there. And today, you look at many people who want to come in there, you can't create another dal makhani, it's impossible, and compete with Bukhara. It'll always be. And they've even got into the FMCG sector with that dal makhani. A lot of students take dals to Europe or wherever they're studying, America. So that is how one should be. Always, don't go head on, because it's not easy. Always work on this sort of niche. If niche is not there, create a sub niche, so that you still have that little monopoly going for you. I would look at it that way. Yeah. Neeraj, answers your question.
Right. Another question from the audience. So there's a huge trend of veganism going on in abroad in particular, but probably coming a bit in India too. Do you see that as a threat? And if yes, do you plan to venture into non-milk products anytime soon?
I don't see veganism as a threat. I think this segment of vegan people who are into vegan food is very little. Then there have been n number of restaurants which have been done in India. People have tried their hand. Unfortunately, none have been able to scale in this particular segment. I've not seen too many people scale up. Also, for me, I think these are more lifestyle diseases. All of a sudden, something that didn't exist, and my granny, who's 97 years old and healthy, and she still goes out for walks, lived on a diet which was milk, lived on a diet which was, she did eat meat. Apologies to all the vegetarians over here, but and she's lived on a diet which has been what we eat here, without the influx of doctors telling us what to do. I realize, and it may be a little controversial what I'm saying. So I generally believe these are all lifestyle diseases. These don't have too much of a meaning, as per me. I went to a doctor and I said, listen, doctor, there's some issue. What is it? He said, oh, do you drink milk? I said, yeah, obviously, yeah. And that's my business. I drink milk. He said, oh, yeah, I think there could be some, no. Everything originates from your gut. So I said, but my gut is fine. He said, no, yeah, the origin of every disease is from your gut. So what you do is you stop drinking milk and you stop eating gluten and become gluten free, and you stop. And so I did it for a bit because the doctor told me, right? I also get, you do get carried away sometimes. And I normally never get carried away. Herd mentality never really does affect me. But I did get carried away that time. And did it, and I said, yeah, what the hell, yeah. And then because nothing really happened, and I went back to my old lifestyle, and I'm very happy. And I always believe, eat everything. Everything is there. I see veganism, yes, in certain segments, it'll come up. It'll be, but businesses, traditional businesses are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And yes, if I were to do a one-off restaurant, one-off, business to do with a very small target market, yes, but scalability will be an issue at this point of time, what I see in veganism, right? So that's it. But just trust your gut, yeah. Don't. I always believe, don't listen to people. Trust yourself. You've lived, you've grown. And I give you a befitting example of my granny. Yeah? She's healthier than all the people who don't eat, who don't drink milk, and who eat only vegetarian food. And she's far healthier than any one of those, right? I can vouch for that. All right. So that's what it is. So yeah.
Okay, so one last question from Akash on YouTube chat. So as the shelf life of your products is quite low, so how do you deal with the problem related to wastages?
I think that's more to do with systems and processes, because we firmly believe that yes, the shelf life is low, but then the product is also a product that is made live in front of you, right? So the advantage with that is that everything is kind of standardized. So if there's a certain amount of milk that is required, say in a milkshake, we use, hypothetically, I'm saying you use 100 ml milk or 150 ml milk, or say 200 ml milk, then you get, so there's a packet which contains 200 ml milk, right? So you don't really use a packet which contains 500 ml milk. So you just pour out that 200 and put it. I'm just giving a very simple, basic example, right? So these are the ways to cut down. In fact, some of the best ways to cut down is done by, and we really learn it all our lives by, invariably when you get into a business, you keep learning these things. So it's the right forecasting, then using a little bit of technology to figure out what is your peak time, in the peak time, and then you get this historical data. Based on the historical data, you try to figure out, yeah, कि शाम को कितने लोग आएंगे, दोपहर को कितने आएंगे, सुबह कितने आएंगे, how many will be there for the high tea session, on weekend how will it be different, on weekend like a Saturday and Sunday what is the difference. So invariably, once you start doing all these things, yeah, this is the least of the problems. It becomes pretty much a part of. But if the gentleman's question is to ask me whether we try to save any money and we try to use something, the shelf life, he's absolutely right. We wait for a day, and if in a day's time it is not consumed, we throw it away. We don't keep. We'll never reuse anything which is post the shelf life. In fact, there's a new trend by the vendors. What the vendors try to do is they reach out to you, and I'm talking about very ethical and MNC companies for your information. And a lot of these companies come to us and say, see, normally say, when the flavor is about to expire and it has a shelf life only 20 days, then they come to us and they say, oh, why don't you take this and we'll give it to you at 75% of the cost. Okay, not 75, like 25% of the cost or 30% of the cost. Please use this and finish it in 15 days. Yeah. So you also benefit, we also benefit. But we invariably do not look at that. We are not in the business of doing this. A lot of companies do it, and which is why a lot of companies, when you go, they'll be able to sell a product maybe cheaper than what we sell. But we firmly believe in the ethical values of creating and doing businesses. And that is why I create Keventer as a brand which is very close to people's heart. It's become an aspirational brand. That is why people are proud to take a photograph with a bottle of Keventers and take a selfie. I think it's till date, I do it, my kids do it, my kids' friends in school do it, and their teachers do it, right? So what I'm saying is, these are certain things that you need to work on, and never get greedy. It's a part and parcel, but it's incorporated in the food cost if there's a little wastage. It's not that much. It's pretty well managed, right? So,
Right.
so that's what.
Right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I think we've really picked on your brain and we
Wow.
really enjoyed doing that. You've given us valuable insights into the customers, your journey at Keventers, and just startup lessons as a whole. And hopefully, if any of us do want to have our startups in future, I think two things we definitely keep in mind. One would be niche or sub niche, and the second would be just ensuring that we're the last person standing. So thank you so much again.
Thank
And
you.
this was a very engaging discussion, and loved your quotes and your wise words. Keventers is truly a very relatable brand for all of us here,
Right.
and we really enjoyed the milkshakes. Thank you.
What a pleasure. See, this is when you hear such good things, that's when you realize you've done something good. Okay. So that's what invariably everybody should work towards that and try and build that sort of a brand. So anytime you want to reach out, please feel free. Anybody, all budding entrepreneurs, I'm available, I'm free. I'll be ever willing to help people. And especially F&B is my category is F&B. So if anybody wants to do anything in that, I'd be more than happy to guide them. Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure. All right. Bye bye.